Drop it! Get on the ground, now!
Officer, it's a camera. I'm not a threat.
I don't care what you say, hands down, now!
I'm a retired Army major. I have ID. You need to slow down.
Stop resisting!
I'm not resisting. Look at what I'm holding.
Look at this for yourself!
Officer Derek Vance had been wearing the badge of the Austin Police Department for just over 6 years when he made the decision that would implode his career and cost the city's taxpayers a staggering $1.3 million. He was 29 years old, a man in the prime of his physical life, but possessed of a temperament that confused authority with aggression. He walked the beat with a swagger that made the veteran officers on the force uneasy, the kind of young cop who viewed every citizen interaction as a contest of dominance that he was required to win. On a crisp, bright Tuesday morning in October, Vance received a dispatch call regarding a suspicious individual lurking in the tree line of Riverside Park. The suspicious individual in question was Major Marcus Thorne, United States Army retired. A 55-year-old black man who had spent a quarter of a century serving his country, leading young men and women through some of the most hostile terrain on God's green earth. What Officer Vance did next, ignoring standard procedure, disregarding a calm demeanor, and driving a decorated disabled veteran face first into the hard Texas soil, would become a viral testament to how quickly unchecked ego combined with implicit bias can shatter a community's trust. Before we dig into the details of this injustice, I want to ask, where are you folks watching from today? If this is your first time joining us, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stories like this one act as a mirror to our society, and we can't fix what we refuse to look at. Your support helps us keep the lights on, and the truth loud and clear. Riverside Park is the crown jewel of the neighborhood. A sprawling stretch of green oaks and pecan trees that runs along the Colorado River. It's the sort of place where retirees walk their golden retrievers at dawn and young parents push strollers in the afternoon. It's peaceful. It's safe. Or at least it's supposed to be. It was 10:15 a.m. The sun was high and bright, casting long shadows through the branches. The humidity had finally broken, leaving the air crisp and clean. Major Marcus Thorne had been at the park since 900 a.m. He was a man of discipline, a trait burned into his bones during 25 years in the Army Rangers. Even in retirement, he kept his hair high and tight, his clothes pressed and his boots polished. But today, he wasn't dressed for inspection. He was wearing comfortable cargo pants, a breathable tan hiking shirt, and a wide-brimmed hat to keep the sun off his neck. To the casual observer, he looked like exactly what he was, a middle-aged man enjoying a quiet morning. But Derek Vance wasn't a casual observer. He was a hammer looking for a nail. When the call came in, Vance was already agitated, having spent the morning dealing with a traffic dispute that hadn't gone his way. He heard the dispatcher's voice. Subject is a black male, approximately 50 years of age, loitering near the walking trail, possibly armed with a long-barreled object. And his mind immediately painted a picture. He didn't hear walking trail. He didn't hear possibly. He heard armed black male. And as he hit the lights and sirens speeding toward Riverside Park, Officer Vance decided right then and there how this encounter was going to end. He didn't know he was rushing to confront a man who had forgotten more about rules of engagement than Vance would ever learn. He didn't know he was about to make a mistake that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Major Marcus Thorne had retired from active duty 4 years prior, carrying with him the Silver Star for gallantry in action and a lumbar spine that screamed in protest every time the weather changed. The transition to civilian life hadn't been seamless. When you spend 2.5 decades operating at the highest level of alertness, silence can feel heavy. His VA therapist had suggested finding a hobby that required focus and patience but offered tranquility. "Birding," she'd said. "It forces you to look at the details, Major. It grounds you." Thorne had been skeptical at first, but he found that tracking the flight of a hawk or waiting for a heron to strike gave his mind a similar tactical satisfaction to a mission without the gunfire. He'd invested in a high-quality Canon camera and a heavy professional-grade telephoto lens white about 18 inches long, and mounted on a monopod for stability. That Tuesday morning, Thorne was tracking a pair of crested caracaras nesting near the riverbank. It was delicate work. You had to be still. You had to control your breathing. He was completely absorbed in the viewfinder, his world narrowed down to the majestic interplay of feathers and light. He wasn't thinking about his race. He wasn't thinking about how he appeared to the outside world. He was just a man finding peace in nature. The camera equipment was heavy, resting on his shoulder when he moved the lens pointing down. He moved with the slow, deliberate grace of a hunter stepping carefully to avoid snapping twigs. To anyone who knew what they were looking at, Thorne was obviously a photographer. But the lens through which America views black men in public spaces is often distorted by fear and ignorance. Thorne had chosen a spot near a dense thicket of brush because it offered the best vantage point for the nest. He wasn't hiding. He was positioning. He had a bottle of water in his cargo pocket and his wallet in his back pocket containing his driver's license and his retired military identification card. He felt safe here. He had fought for the freedoms that allowed citizens to enjoy parks like this. He believed, perhaps naively, that his service shielded him from the indignities he saw on the news. He believed that if he followed the law, minding his own business, the world would leave him be. He was wrong. The trouble began not with the police, but with a civilian. Sheila Hannes, 48 years old, was a resident of the upscale neighborhood bordering the park. She was walking her terrier, as she did every morning, scanning her surroundings, with a vigilance that bordered on paranoia. Sheila prided herself on being the eyes and ears of the community. She was the administrator of the local Neighborhood Watch Facebook group, a platform she frequently used to report suspicious vehicles, usually delivery trucks driven by people of color and unfamiliar faces. When Sheila rounded the bend in the path and saw Marcus Thorne standing near the trees, her instinct wasn't curiosity, it was immediate alarm. She stopped about 50 yards away, squinting against the sunlight. She didn't see a camera. She didn't see a bird watcher. She saw a large black man in tactical-looking clothing, cargo pants, holding a long black and white metal object that she couldn't identify. In her mind, fed by sensationalist news and deep-seated bias, the object became a weapon. Maybe a rifle. Maybe a scope. She didn't wait to verify. She didn't walk closer to ask a friendly question. She pulled her phone from her Lululemon leggings and dialed 911, her heart racing with a self-manufactured panic. 911, what is your emergency? Yes, I'm at Riverside Park near the north entrance. Sheila said, her voice trembling with breathless urgency. There's a man here, a black man. He's hiding in the bushes and he has something large in his hands. It looks like a gun or a launcher of some kind. He's aiming it at the houses. The dispatcher remained calm. Ma'am, is he pointing a weapon at a person? He's pointing it everywhere. Sheila lied, escalating the threat to ensure a faster response. He's acting very strange. He's crouching down and then standing up. I don't feel safe. There are children in this park. You need to send someone right now before he hurts someone. We have officers en route, ma'am. Can you describe him? He's tall, wearing military clothes. He looks like he's on a mission or something. Please hurry. Sheila hung up and retreated behind a large oak tree, holding her phone up to record, convinced she was documenting a crime in progress. She didn't realize she was setting the stage for an assault on an innocent man. She watched as Thorne shifted his position, lifting the camera to his eye to track a bird. See? She whispered to her camera. He's taking aim. Officer Derek Vance was less than 2 miles away when the call was updated with Sheila's exaggerated details. Suspect is in military-style clothing, possibly targeting civilians. That was all Vance needed to hear. He had been with the department for 6 years, and in that time he had accumulated a personnel file that should have been a warning sign to any competent supervisor. 7 complaints. 7 times citizens had reported him for rudeness, excessive aggression, or escalating minor infractions into physical confrontations. 5 of those complaints came from Black or Hispanic residents. All of them had been dismissed as unfounded or within policy by a chain of command that prioritized protecting their own over correcting behavior. Vance was known in the precinct as a go-getter. He wrote a lot of tickets. He made a lot of arrests. His superiors praised his metrics, but often added footnotes in his annual reviews suggesting he work on community rapport. Vance didn't care about rapport. He cared about control. As he steered his patrol cruiser around the winding roads leading to the park, his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He wasn't thinking about de-escalation tactics. He wasn't thinking about the possibility of a misunderstanding. He was visualizing a takedown. He was preparing for a firefight. He didn't wait for backup. The protocol for a potential active shooter or armed subject suggested waiting for a second unit, but Vance wanted to be the hero. He wanted to be the one who neutralized the threat. He parked his car aggressively on the grass near the trail entrance, not bothering with a designated spot. He exited the vehicle unsnapping the retention strap on his holster. He didn't draw his weapon yet, but his hand hovered over it ready. He scanned the park, his adrenaline spiking. When he spotted Thorne near the tree line, back turned to the officer holding the long monopod and lens, Vance didn't pause to assess. He didn't use his radio to call out observations. He just reacted. He started running toward Thorne, shouting before he was even in earshot. The die was cast. The tragedy was in motion. Major Thorne was tracking the Caracara as it banked left, his focus absolute. The world was silent except for the wind in the leaves. Then that silence was shattered by a scream from behind him. "Police, drop it! Drop it now!" Thorne didn't flinch. He didn't panic. 25 years of combat experience meant that sudden noise didn't make him jump. It made him assess. He lowered the camera slowly, resting the base of the monopod on the ground, and turned his head. He saw a young officer, red-faced, sprinting toward him, hand on his gun. Thorne recognized the posture immediately. Aggression. Fear. Poor discipline. "Hands where I can see them! Get on the ground!" Vance bellowed, stopping 20 feet away, his chest heaving. Thorne kept his hands visible away from his body. He spoke with the calm, projecting voice of a commander addressing a subordinate. "Officer, I am moving slowly. I am holding a camera. I am a birdwatcher. I don't care what you say. Drop the weapon and get on your knees." Vance was vibrating with tension. He couldn't see the lens clearly from his angle. He just saw a black metal tube. "It is a Canon camera lens, son," Thorne said, his voice steady, refusing to be treated like a criminal. "I am Major Marcus Thorne, U.S. Army retired. I have identification in my back pocket. There is no need for shouting." Vance heard the tone of authority in Thorne's voice, and it infuriated him. In his mind, a suspect was supposed to be cowering, not lecturing him. He closed the distance rapidly. "I said get on the ground. Do it now, or I will make you—" "I have a spinal injury from service," Thorne explained, still standing tall, dignity radiating from him. "I cannot get on the ground easily. I am happy to cooperate, but you need to calm down and look at what I am holding." Vance reached him. He didn't look at the camera. He didn't look at the expensive glass or the strap. He saw a black man refusing a command. He grabbed Thorne's left arm and twisted it behind his back. "Hey!" Thorne grunted, pain shooting through his shoulder. "I am not resisting. Look at the equipment." "Stop resisting!" Vance screamed, reciting the lines he'd been taught to shout for the body camera recording. He kicked Thorne's legs out from under him. A leg sweep on a 55-year-old disabled veteran. Thorne hit the ground hard. His camera flew from his grip, the $2,000 lens smashing against a rock. The impact knocked the wind out of him, jarring his fused vertebrae. Pain exploded in his lower back, white-hot and blinding. Officer Vance dropped his knee onto Thorne's back, right onto the surgical scar where shrapnel had been removed a decade earlier. He pressed his full weight down, grinding Thorne into the dirt. You are under arrest for failure to comply and resisting an officer, Vance panted, wrestling Thorne's other arm back. I am not resisting. Thorne gasped, his face pressed into the mulch. You are making a mistake, officer. Check my ID. Check the camera. By now, people had stopped. A group of joggers, a young couple, and yes, Sheila Hannes, who had come closer expecting to see a gun, but now seeing a shattered camera lens lying in the dust. He's just taking pictures, a woman in a tracksuit yelled from the path. That's a camera. Why are you hurting him? Back up, Vance yelled at the civilians, sweat dripping into his eyes. Stay back. He's a veteran, another man shouted, holding up his phone to record. I talked to him earlier. He's retired Army. Get off him. Vance ignored them. He cinched the handcuffs too tight around Thorne's wrists. The metal bit into the skin. He yanked Thorne up to a seated position, but Thorne cried out in pain as his back seized up. I told you. My spine. Thorne winced, his breathing shallow. Should have thought of that before you disobeyed. Vance sneered. He walked over to the weapon lying in the dirt. He picked it up. It was heavy. He turned it over. Cannon. 400 mm. Vance stared at the object. The glass was shattered. It wasn't a gun. It wasn't a launcher. It was exactly what the man had said it was. A cold pit formed in Vance's stomach, but he couldn't back down now. He had an audience. He had to be right. It could be a disguise, he muttered to himself, desperate to justify the violence. The sound of a second siren cut through the tension. A supervisor's SUV pulled up to the curb. Sergeant Miller, a veteran officer with 20 years on the force, stepped out. Miller was a good cop, the kind who knew the neighborhood and knew his officers. He saw the crowd filming. He saw Vance standing over a seated man. He saw the broken camera equipment. Miller walked briskly to the scene. Vance, what do we have? Suspect was reported armed, Sarge. Refused commands. Resisted arrest. I secured him. Miller looked at Thorne. He saw the haircut. He saw the bearing even in pain. He saw the Ranger tab tattoo on Thorne's forearm, faded but visible. Sir, Miller said, addressing Thorne. Are you injured? My back, Thorne gritted out. Fused vertebrae, L4 and L5. Your officer kicked my legs out. Miller's eyes widened. He turned to Vance. You swept a man with a back injury. He wouldn't get down, Sarge. Did you check him for weapons? Miller asked, his voice dropping. I haven't searched him yet. I secured the scene. Miller knelt beside Thorne. Sir, I'm going to check your pockets for ID. Is that all right? Back right pocket, Thorne whispered. Miller pulled out the leather wallet. He opened it. He saw the Texas driver's license. Then he saw the Department of Defense retiree ID. Rank Major. Miller closed his eyes for a second, inhaling a sharp breath. He looked at the shattered camera lens. He looked at the crowd, now numbering 20 people, all with phones raised. He stood up and looked at Vance with a gaze that could peel paint. Vance, unlock these cuffs. Now. But Sarge, Now, officer, Miller barked. Vance fumbled for his keys. He undid the cuffs. Thorne rubbed his wrists, deep red grooves already forming. Sir, do you need an ambulance? Miller asked, offering a hand to help Thorne up, but stopping when he saw Thorne wince. Yes, Thorne said quietly. I think something is broken. Miller keyed his radio. Dispatch, send EMS to my location. Priority. Officer involved injury. He turned to Vance. Get in your car. Do not speak to anyone. Do not say a word. Just sit there. Vance walked to his cruiser, head down. The adrenaline was gone. The silence of the park was heavy, broken only by the whispers of the witnesses. They arrested a hero, someone said, for nothing. The video hit the internet before Thorne was even loaded into the ambulance. It was titled, Austin Police Assault Elderly Veteran Birdwatcher. By the time Major Thorne was being x-rayed at the hospital confirming a refracture of his L4 vertebrae, the clip had 2 million views. It showed everything: the calm stance of the major, the screaming officer, the kick, the smash of the camera, the crowd pleading. The backlash was nuclear. The Austin Police Department's phone lines jammed within an hour. The mayor called a press conference that evening. The chief of police, usually defensive of his officers, watched the body cam footage and the civilian video and simply shook his head. There was no spinning this. There was no context that made it okay. Major Thorne required surgery to repair the damage to his back. He spent 3 weeks in the hospital and months in physical rehabilitation. The humiliation of being treated like a criminal in front of his community was a wound that healed slower than the bone. Civil rights attorneys lined up to represent him. The lawsuit they filed was blistering. It cited excessive force, unlawful arrest violation of civil rights, and failure to supervise. It pointed out Vance's 7 prior complaints. It named Sheila Hannes for filing a false report, though she was not a government actor. Her name became synonymous with the safety that endangers others. The city attorneys took one look at the case and waved the white flag. They didn't want this in front of a jury. They didn't want Major Thorne in his dress uniform testifying about how he survived Afghanistan only to be broken in a park by a rookie cop. 10 months later, the settlement was announced. $1.3 million paid to Major Marcus Thorne. It was the largest individual settlement for a non-lethal force case in the city's history. Officer Derek Vance was fired 3 weeks after the incident. The internal affairs investigation was brutal. It concluded that he had violated 6 different policies, including de-escalation use of force and professional conduct. His appeal was denied. He was stripped of his certification, ensuring he could never work as a police officer in the state of Texas again. At 29, he was unemployed, branded a disgrace, and facing his own demons. Sheila Hannes was charged with filing a false police report, a misdemeanor. She pleaded no contest, paid a fine, and moved out of the neighborhood after being socially ostracized by the very community she claimed to protect. But money doesn't fix a back, and firing an officer doesn't erase the memory of a boot on your spine. Major Thorne eventually returned to Riverside Park. He bought a new camera. He walks with a cane now, a permanent reminder of that Tuesday morning. He still watches the birds. He says they are the only ones who don't judge him before they know him. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many Major Thornes are out there who didn't have a crowd filming? How many didn't have a badge in their pocket to prove their worth? We have to be better than this. We have to demand that the people we give guns and badges to have the temperament to use them wisely. What do you folks think? Should officers like Vance face criminal charges, not just firing? Drop a comment below. And if you believe in justice for veterans and accountability for police, please like this video and share it. It helps us keep the truth alive. Until next time, take care of each other.